Welcome to Guest of the Year. I'm the host. My name's Mike. Today's guest setlist curator is Angie Martoccio, senior writer at Rolling Stone. She's written cover stories on Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, and Boygenius, and interviewed icons like Stevie Nicks, Neil Young, and recently Bob Weir. Her award-winning work often highlights overlooked women in music history. Welcome, Angie.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Before we get going, I want to mention real quick a very cool seminar on the Grateful Dead going on in Bailey's Harbor, Wisconsin at Lawrence University from August 3rd through 8th, 2025. It's being led by Eric Mlyn, friend of the show. He teaches the Grateful Dead course at Duke, which he's been kind enough to let me sit in on. And he is teaching a seminar called What a Long Strange Trip, The Grateful Dead and American Cultural Change. If you want to register for the conference, you can do that via the link in the show notes. And if I lived anywhere even close to Wisconsin, I'd be there, so check it out. All right, here's how the game works. We'll play the first part of a Grateful Dead live track, and each contestant will use the messaging system to silently guess which year their performance is from. Contestants who are all on a video conference together can message in their guesses at any time during the clip or in the 10 seconds after it concludes. Whoever is furthest from the correct year is eliminated. The last two deadheads standing will hear 3 tracks, and whoever is closest to the correct year in aggregate wins. We've got our returning champ Zach here with us, and we'll meet the rest of the Deadheads in a moment, but first, without further ado, the Grateful Dead. It was a magnificent Black Peter in Madison, Wisconsin on December 3rd, 1981. How long have you known about this Black Peter? And yeah, tell us about it.
I grew up a vinyl obsessive, like when it was hard to find records. Like this was well before the resurgence. So it was like really fun going to record stores in like the mid 2000s, I would say, 2010s rather. My exposure through the Dead was very much that way of like buying the studio albums and thinking like this is the Grateful Dead, and then having, as we all know, that's the last way you should be experiencing the Dead. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of my jumping board from how I started. And so I have a friend of mine, he's my husband's close friend, and he loves to text me just like things I should check out from the Dead. And knowing very much that it's like a working man's Dead track, he was like, you might like this one. And he wasn't joking that this is such a Robert Hunter-y kind of song. It's got the elements of death and darkness as he was known for. But what I love about it is that this one is such a dirgy, it's bluesy. There's all this darkness, and then it kind of comes in. If you really need to get deep about it, there's that line about the sun going up and down, and how for Peter it's kind of meaningless for him. Like life goes on anyway. And for me, when I hear that part that I sent you that we all just heard, it's like this sunshiny moment that kind of represents that. Like it's still dark and sad, but it has this like really intense burst of happiness, I guess you could say. And that's why I like it so much.
You recently interviewed Bob Weir, and I'm a real cretin, and I'm on the Grateful Dead subreddit a lot. And everyone was Everyone was like so effusive over this interview. It was like the first thing the entire subreddit has agreed on ever, maybe, because I think you asked a lot of the questions we all wanted to know. Like, is Billie rejoining Dead & Co ever? Why did Dead & Co say they were going to break up and then not? As a big Deadhead, was it tough to ask him these questions you knew he wasn't going to want to answer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love asking tough questions. It's really fun. It's fun for me. It's part of my job, and you get used to doing it. I think for this particular situation was that I interviewed Chloe Weir last year about photographing the sphere, and I got to know her and we became kind of friendly with each other. So when I showed up at the Jim Henson Studios, the Natasha, Chloe, the Weirs were all there. And so Chloe was like, Dad, Angie's here. And she like introduced me to him. And I think it kind of warmed him up a bit because he famously hates doing this kind of stuff. It's not a secret. He had to do the photo shoot right before, which is like, for a journalist, that's the last thing you want because they already have spent so much time, posing and out of their comfort zone. And it's just not his vibe at all. So I even joked with him when it started. I was like, I'm sure this is the last thing you want to do right now. And he was laughing and he was like, it's fine. But that studio that I did the interview in, just so you guys know, was packed with people. That was his team, his family, like they were all watching it. So for me, that's when, although I love asking tough questions, it really put the pressure on because I had this audience that I'm not used to. And that was harder for me. But it was good. Like this is the Rolling Stone interview, and the difference with that and like our usual Q&As is that it's a long form, career spanning, broad interview, and he knew that before. So he was kind of prepared that I was going to ask questions he wouldn't love.
How do you think his manager or publicist or whatever pitched the interview to him?
I mean, the way I said it and what I hope that they said, because he has such a lovely team and they're like, they wanted this just as much as we did, like everyone wants to hear Bob talk and his thoughts on things. And especially with the recent deaths of Phil, like it's just been, there's been a lot going on to say the least with their honoring the Kennedy Center, the Sphere, the 60th coming up. Like it was kind of like, why wouldn't we want to talk to Bob? And I feel like that's what his management passed on. But what I said to them and what I think they did pass on to him was like, Jerry did this interview years ago. We did so many interviews with him, but he did a very extensive, quote unquote, Rolling Stone interview a long time ago. So I think for his legacy and for what it all means and like the significance of doing it, like he was very game. And he like made it so lovely. Like he really was game for everything. Even when he didn't want to ask something or like he wasn't in the mood for it, he was just like, he did the best he could.
Yeah, you even broached how Bob didn't get along with Phil towards the end there.
I mean, they didn't. It's not a secret. Like, and I'm not gonna do an interview and not ask the questions that like the fans want to hear. I mean, I was honestly shocked you said that like it was a unanimous, like this was a great interview because I was terrified that like it would be like, you never really know how the fans are going to perceive it. But
It's so good.
Thanks. I wanted to do a service to them because they're always like wondering what's going on. And like, I don't know, I have all these different feelings about it. Like on the one hand, he was super happy to do it. And then on the other hand, like he didn't love certain questions. Like you saw what he said about even the election. He was like, I think I've said all I can say on this. And I was kind of like, oh, like this was my second question. So it was.
Yeah. I assume you write your questions beforehand, like in the order you want them in.
Oh yeah. I have like I'm obsessive with like Google Docs and my friends have made fun of me because if they look at my questions, sometimes it literally starts with like, how is your day going? And like, I just do that for like my mental, like, me just preparing. But I literally write everything out. Yeah.
And how thoughtful are you about where you place difficult questions? Is there a method to that?
Absolutely. You don't want to sit down and ask questions they don't want to hear, and then it changes the whole vibe of everything. So I kind of pocket them in later on. With Bob, for example, like I think it was okay to ask about Phil kind of early because that was important and it just, happened and it's very natural for me to ask. But when it comes to like, why are you still doing this after you said it was your final show with Dead & Co a long time ago? Like that's not something I sat down and asked. So, yeah.
And you don't deviate from the list.
No, I mean, I do if like something unexpected comes up or like for example, this is so silly to say, but when he started talking about, he said, I had to tell you something that I haven't told anyone yet. And I was like, what is it? And he was like, I've been running barefoot. And I was like, oh, that's like, honestly, like for me, that's so exciting. I love hearing about his fitness stuff, but I was really expecting I don't know what I was expecting. So with that, I kind of changed gears and we started talking about like fitness and his dogs and stuff. And that wasn't obviously written down.
Awesome. Well, that was a crazy Black Peter pick. That was so good. And the closest to it was Jackson, who's on in the next round. Way to go, Jackson. Jackson gets 1980. Jackson is 23 from Flagstaff, Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why 1980? Nice pull, Jackson. That's really good.
I think Brent was my biggest cue. I was thinking 79 at first, just like I love the early Brent years and his like the synthy high in the mix funk. But then I was like, oh, he's kind of like more evenly mixed in. Yeah.
You're on the next round, Jackson. Next closest was 1979. Zach, he's also on the next round. Zach's our returning champ. He's 32 from Syracuse. So yeah, you did think it was 79. So you're kind of hearing the same thing as Jackson. What were you picking up on?
Very similar thought process. Just the B3, just like raging in there. I'm like, all right, it's like a certain period of Brent, and I just kind of I don't know, the fidelity of the recording was making me think it was really early Brent, but it wasn't as early as I thought, I guess.
You're on the next round. Joining you is Dennis. He gets 1987. Josh gets 1988.
What?
I totally see what you guys I totally see what you guys thought. But I want to hear from you. Dennis is 42 from Brazil. Where in Brazil, Dennis?
Sao Paulo. Not the cool part, not Rio, from Sao Paulo, the boring city.
Tell us
87.
At first, I was really under the impression it was like early 80s especially because of Brent's like being really high up in the mix. But then I don't know, something in Jerry's guitar tone, maybe the distortion threw me off a little, and I thought, no, this is like way later. This is like late 80s, maybe early 90s. I don't know. I was obviously wrong, and I obviously don't understand any of that stuff. It's just like a feeling that I got wrong. So that was it.
You're not a musician?
I am a terrible one. I play a lot of instruments, but none of them, like, I don't master anything.
Playing any instrument is pretty cool in my book. So nice, Dennis. And it's whatever you're doing is working. You're on to the next round. Josh is 26 from Brighton, Michigan. Josh, 1988, 1 year off the pace. Why 88? You're clearly hearing the same thing as Dennis.
Man, same thing as Dennis. I told myself before I came on, I go, trust your gut. First thing you hear, go with. And I was like early 80s all the way. And then as the recording went on, I started hearing that more simmering Jerry guitar, again, more distorted, a little bit off the beat, and I go, well, maybe it's late 80s. And I picked 88 and guess wrong this time.
How'd you get into the Dead, Josh?
So how I got into the Grateful Dead is actually through another artist with a similar cult following, Jimmy Buffett. So grew up a big Parrot head. My folks are big Parrot heads. I mean, it was always playing in the car when I was young. Grew up, hearing it, going to shows a little bit. I got to see Jimmy his last time playing at Pine Knob before he passed away. And he's recorded Uncle John's band, Scarlet Begonias, and he's also played Ripple on Playing for Change. And I remember I heard that Scarlet Begonias that he did, and I was like, who is this? Back when I was like probably in high school, and found out it was a Grateful Dead song, started going down the rabbit hole and adding American Beauty, adding Working Man's Dead, and just kept it going from there. Started going to see Dead & Co shows, and here we are now. I'm fully obsessed. So.
Wow. How are the Parrot heads doing? It's like the Deadheads after Jerry died. Like, where do they go?
It's, for a minute there, people weren't quite sure what they were going to do. Now the Coral Reefer Band, his backing band, is going to tour with the Doobie Brothers this summer. I'm definitely going to that show. It'll still be fun. The rest of the crew kind of does little off-pocket shows and stuff like that. There's starting to be some more Buffett tribute acts pop up and stuff. So we're making it through.
Who does the Jimmy parts in the new band? Do they bring a John in?
Yeah, someone made a joke. They go, John Mayer could do the funniest thing ever. But no, his kind of right-hand man, Mac McAnally, handles a lot of that stuff. He's a great songwriter in his own right. Peter Mayer, his lead guitarist, handles some stuff. So they kind of pass the mic around.
So you've been like Dead & Co, right? You've seen the lot scene. What's the Parrot head lot scene, the Buffett lot scene like? Is it people getting after it, or?
It's a lot less vending and a lot more drinking. You're usually partying pretty hard. And I like Jimmy for the music. I mean, I'll go and have a couple beers or something like that. But I'm there to see the show for sure. But you definitely get a lot of people who are just there to party and hang out, much like the Dead scene back in the day too.
Well, Josh, really appreciate you coming on Guest of the Year.
Appreciate you guys for having me. I'm gonna sit back and listen here.
Right on,
you,
Josh.
Josh.
Thanks, dude. Dennis, Jackson, Zach are on the next round. Angie has another great pick. All right, the guesses are in. Drums at Kezar in San Francisco on March 23rd, 1975. Cool pick. Tell us about that drums.
Yeah, so you guys know, obviously, you have a writer on, so I'm just going to tell you, it's weird. I didn't plan this out. This show was 50 years ago and a month exactly to the day. And that was the snack benefit. If you're not familiar, that's the Bill Graham benefit that he put together. What is it? Students need athletics, culture, and kicks. So this is this star-studded benefit that had Joan Baez, the Dead. It had the Doobies, Santana, and Neil Young and Bob Dylan. This is the first time ever that Neil and Bob played together. It was right before Bob did Blood on the Tracks. They both hadn't really been touring lately. Neil had just wrapped up the Doom tour, so this is like kind of big for his fans. And it's just like a completely ridiculous idea that all these people were playing together, and it's not too much, like it's not something you really hear about anymore. And then there's a Side of the Dead. This is like a 3 keyboard event, and it's this really quick Blues for Allah set list. And I was looking at it, and like the 2 Allah songs on there, including the title track, like it would have been so obvious. They played it so rarely. And I was like asking Mike, I was like, is it crazy if I do like a drums? And he was like, no, absolutely not. But I love it. I just think it's really fun, and it's just from this really historic day that the anniversary just came around. So,
and it's so cool that they still did not only drums but Blues for Allah at this like festival.
Yes.
Like no one would do that equivalent nowadays at like a festival gig, a charity gig.
Yeah, exactly. It's a charity gig that starts with that and then ends with like Johnny Be Good. It's like it's so bizarre. But I was looking at photos from it, and obviously the fans on Reddit love it, and it's really cool. I mean, it's got Ned and Merle on it, so it's cool.
Okay, the closest was Denis, 1978.
Immediately when it started playing, I thought this sounds like 75. I don't know why, but it just sounded like 75. I wasn't thinking of the snack benefit concert specifically, but just the quality of the sounding, it just sounded like 75 to me. But then I thought, no, it's got to be 76. Like, I think I unconsciously heard the whistle and maybe like more people there. I thought, no, this perhaps it's like those early drums where they call themselves the Rhythm Devils. So I went for 78.
Way to go, Denis. You're on the next round. And Zach guessed 1970 and Jackson guessed 1969. So Zach is back in the finals to defend his Guest of the Year crown. 1970, Zach.
I was thinking Rhythm Devils immediately because it didn't sound like Primal Dead era to me. And then as it was going on, I thought I heard like someone hitting like the beats to Good Lovin', which is either with Pigpen, so not after 71 or not until that same period really. I don't think it comes back until 77 or what, I don't know, maybe it happens in 76 when they get back together, but either way. So I thought I was hearing that, and I just thought it was earlier. It didn't quite sound like 78 to me, which is where the Rhythm Devils thing came in, and then I just kind of took a shot.
On the next round. Way to go, Zach. Jackson just 1 year off the pace at 69. Tell us about it.
I heard Two Drummers and I was like, I thought it sounded like early Dead version of Two Drummers. And I was like thinking about the Harper College show with the Good Lovin' where they kind of have the drums interlude. Yeah, it was a shot in the dark.
Well, how'd you get into the Dead, Jackson?
In high school, I had some friends that were into it. My family wasn't like into the Dead, but I'd say it was in the periphery. So I like recognized the art and stuff. And then I went to, my one friend invited me to their like little family reunion. Her parents rent a cabin for the weekend and they're all huge Deadheads. And we were like out in the woods doing something and came back and they had this crazy sound system and they were playing Dancing on the Streets from Cornell. And I was like, what the heck is this? And so that night I like spent the whole night listening to the rest of Cornell and then like the Pacific Northwest 73, 74 show or record. Quickly thereafter, I got super into it. My dad like saw that I was getting into it and J-Rad was playing in Portland, Maine, and we went together and that kind of solidified it. And yeah, I've been super hooked ever since. And I feel like it's not going to go away.
So you listened to the Pacific Northwest show the same night that you listened to the
same night. We were up till like 3 a.m, like with my friends' dads, with all these like old Deadheads who are super cool. And they were like showing us like they had I think we listened to the rest of Cornell after Dancing in the Streets. And then they put on China Rider, which is like the first 2 songs in that record of the 73, 74. And I was blown away. And I didn't recognize any of the songs at that point.
So then what were you connecting to, you think? What was the synergizing with whatever you were doing in the woods?
That's a really good question. In my house growing up, there was a lot of like bluegrass. My dad plays rhythm guitar and like played in a bluegrass folk band when I was younger. And there's a lot of like good music going around that I was always kind of resistant to because it was like, that's what my parents listened to. So I had a phase before that where I was like only listening to hip hop and I think that whole just like music in general had just not been like a super important part of my life. And then to hear something like so different and like funky yet experimental and like on a really good sound system and in a good state of mind to hear it in, I think everything came together in this perfect moment. And I was like, yeah, ever since then, I probably have had days where I haven't listened to the Dead, but I listen to the Dead every day now.
Thanks for coming on the show, dude.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Good luck.
All right, we got Denis and Zach, 3 tracks. Whoever's lowest in aggregate over the 3 tracks, whoever's least number of years off, wins. Angie has 3 more awesome tracks and more if necessary. Let's hear her next pick. The guesses are in. It was Cumberland Blues at Shoreline on October 3rd, 1987. Angie, great pick. Tell us about it.
I really wanted like an 87 in here, first of all. There's this guy named Brent Just kidding. I love it so much. I love this little bit. He's so whimsical almost. Like it's so good. It's so sprightly. I also love the video. Like I've watched that a couple times and just seeing his like, I mean, aesthetically, it's obviously fun. I think side note, I feel like Bobby's jean shorts kind of overshadow like Brent's style here. They're talked about too much. Like you have Brent with his little like pocket breast shirt and like he's just so I don't know, he's so giddy almost. And I really wanted in my list some kind of like late 80s cut and this had to be it for me.
Yeah, and that gold watch, which is totally back now.
Yes. Yes, totally back now. And then it's Cumberland. Like, I mean, why not? Like, I already have a Working Man's Dead in here, but I was like, fuck it. Like, this is so good and so special to me. I've also seen this show on a shirt like everywhere lately. It's been kind of like very frequently. But yeah, that's my reason.
I don't know if the journalists think this way, but when you look back on guys like Brent and the way they were covered, do you ever think like, oh, this is what I'd ask Brent?
I'm just really glad that people like David Frick were able to do that. And like, I think they're really good in that corner. I don't really think, I mean, I guess I definitely do think about things I would have asked, but I don't think they were covered in like a bad way. I feel like maybe they were just undercovered, you know? I think now, obviously, Brent should have been given a lot more solo interviews than he ever got. I feel like he easily could have been more of a star than like, you know, he would have been later. I feel like later on people looked back at that and been like, that was like seriously someone we should have paid more attention to outside of the fans. I think even like people who aren't familiar with the Dead know Brent now. So what does that say?
Okay, this is a profile writer question. I've always wondered if you're interviewing, say, like Billie Eilish, which you have, you'll also interview her famous friends that kind of have blurbs that pop up throughout the piece. It's cool. It's always unexpected. It's like a celebrity sighting.
Oh, secondary interviews. Yeah.
Ah, there you go. What role do those play in like the structure of the written profile?
I love secondary interviews. It's a fun topic for me. I think they're like kind of overlooked. People just think like you maybe casually just ask somebody how they feel about something. For somebody that's like a very A-list cover star, we have to reach out to the publicist and say like, do they have anyone on their mind? Here's what I'm thinking of. Like for Billie Eilish, I had to ask if I could talk to Hailey Bieber to the publicist because they're friends, but it's not really who you would think of to like add context to how we know Billie Eilish. You would think of like her brother or like her close friends, but not like Hailey Bieber or like Zoe Kravitz. So when I talk to the person in interviews, I'll ask them what they do and like how they spend their time. And if they happen to mention someone they've worked with or if they're friends with, then like I think it's a fun way to like just kind of pick someone's brain on like why they know this person, what makes this person good, why we're covering them, like funny anecdotes they have. I think Haley was expecting it to be very straightforward of like, why is Billie Eilish great? And instead I was like, oh, Billie told me like she shattered a glass that you gave her as a gift. And she was like, huh? Like, but it makes it more familiar and fun for me, like making these people seem more human than they are. It's just like talking to their friends.
It's against etiquette to be like, if you're talking to Billie, like, yo, could you shoot Hailey Bieber a text and tell her to talk to me?
No, yeah, it's always a back and forth. It's case by case. Like I have some covers where like I just reach out on my own independently, and then other times where I have to run everything by the publicist. So you never really know.
But you work for Rolling Stone. People email you back for these type of things most of the time, right?
Yeah, most of the time. And I would say now in 2025, like Rolling Stone kind of means less than what it used to be. Like, you know, it's media is so different now. To me, it's like my dream job and I love it, but you'd be surprised like how, you know, if you're like Beyonce, you're not going to be like, "Oh, I must talk to Rolling Stone about my new song." You're going to be like, "No, I'm going to go on Instagram and write a caption." Like it's such a different game now and than how it used to be. Um but the cool part is like when you're talking to like Bob Weir and explaining to him why like this would be a great opportunity, like he understands it because that's his time and his, you know, he especially like Rolling Stone started in 1967 in the Bay. So like that's very much what he knows and what he's used to.
What is behind that strategy of just not doing interviews?
I think that they feel the need to completely be on their own brand and not have any kind of formal interview anymore because they don't think they have to. Like it's not a secret to say that like we need Beyonce and Rolling Stone we needs Beyonce more than Beyonce needs us, you know? Like And I just think like now, like or even it's not even Instagram, like they have more fun talking to their friends for interviews than like journalists. So over the years, we've gotten opportunities from big stars who are like, oh, like we'd love to do the cover if their like hairstylist does the interview. Be like, no, that's not that's not how this works. Um, so yeah, that part is like so different, but it's still like on the other side of that, like there's still big stars who love doing Rolling Stone interviews. Like Billie Eilish is a classic artist who like really wants this to be like a big moment for her. So she's like, oh, I must be on the cover of Rolling Stone.
For the record, I hate those interviews. I did not watch the like actors roundtable where they all go around talking about how they love each other's work. Brutal.
Oh,
Brutal.
yes. It's so boring. It's like painful. But I do love like someone like Weir had this like I described this team of people like literally everyone in his circle was there. And then you have the opposite of like other older people. Like in October of last year, I spent like 3 hours with Stevie Nicks in her hotel room with no one around. And she did not give a fuck. She was bored and just kept saying like, what else you got for me? And she just wanted to like hang out. And I had like complete access, and like that's a very rare thing that happens these days. So it's something that like was very special to me that like does not happen a lot.
No one's going to cancel her at this point. What is she,
Yeah.
You can't
Right.
cancel Stevie
Frankly,
Nicks.
doesn't
No.
care.
And so Bob had like 10 people in the room. Mostly it's like 1 or 2 people.
1 or 2 at the most. I even will sometimes ask, like, Bob was fine, but if I do, like, cover stories, I kinda have to be annoying and, like, I love to just be alone with the person. 'Cause, there's someone on their team who's, like, making sure they don't say things that are not what they want out there. Um, again, things that will make the story interesting, so.
Well, shout out Denis. He nailed it. 87. Nice poll, Denis. Really, really nice. Zach guessed 88. How'd you pull that? 87. Damn.
Sort of like a wild guess. It sounded like the second part of the 80s. I recently listened to a lot of the versions of Dupree's Diamond Blues from the late 80s, and it's not the same sound from that from Brent's Keys there, but it's pretty close. So I was like between 87 and 89. I went with the 87.
Zach, 88. You're right on it.
Kind of similar thoughts. I was thinking late 80s for sure. I initially was trying to decide between 87 and 89 for some reason, so I was just like, go down the middle and hope for the best. A shout out to Dozin at the Nick. That release is a good Dupree's on that.
That's exactly the one I was thinking about.
Nice.
Yeah, no one thinks of 88 on this show, and I'm the same way. If I'm like scrolling for shows, I never stop at 88. I don't know why.
I feel like it's a lull between 87 and 89 and 90s, obviously. Like golden. I don't know, 87 to 90 is the whole golden year thing, but 86, 87 has Jerry coming back from the coma. And then like whatever, Dylan of the Dead is 87, Touch of Grey comes out. And then 88's not bad, but and then 89 is just, all downhill from here.
Before we go on to the second song of the finals, Denis, how did you get into the Dead?
Okay, that's sort of a funny story. I found this was back in the late 90s. I accidentally found a CD case on a taxi cab on my way home, and I tried to give it back to the driver, and he said, "You know what? I don't know who left it there. It might have been like not even today, so why don't you take it?" So I took it home, and there was like a Jamiroquai album. There was this Gypsy Kings, as usual with with the CD cases back then. But there were 2 Grateful Dead CDs. One was In the Dark, and the other one was From the Mars Hotel. And I knew of the Dead. I knew they existed, but to me, like the Dead was because of the imagery. It was this sort of like Iron Maiden sort of band, And although I liked heavy metal, I wasn't too big on Iron Maiden back then. So I I don't know. I never thought to listen to them. But then when I put the From the Mars Hotel album, it was like the opposite of what I expected. And the first song that really caught me was China Doll. And I was like, okay, I need to listen to this band more. And then I put In the Dark and I hated it because it sounded like 280s to me. I was like, okay, so this is obviously a band that it's only good in the 70s, like all bands that I like. So I went and dug everything from them till, I don't know, until the 80s. And it took a while for me to get to the 80s. And anyways, that was a journey that I'm still on.
And what's the Deadhead scene like in Sao Paulo?
Oh, it's inexistent. I mean, people, because they don't have hits, like radio hits. I feel like the biggest bands are the ones who toured Brazil in like some time. Like Queen is pretty big because they did Rock in Rio in '85 and stuff like that. So I feel like a lot of people know about the Dead. They know they exist, but nobody knows any of their songs. And their albums weren't even like released in Brazil nationally. You had to buy them imported, which means it was way more expensive. So nobody has Dead albums. So right now with streaming, everyone can hear it, and I know a lot of people who listen to it and like it, and even like know the albums and dig the official live releases. But I personally don't know anyone who would go let's say the extra mile to, I don't know, listen to the Dick Pics, for example, or even go and re-listen and try to find a show. So if there's anyone listening, any Deadheads in Brazil listening, yeah.
Yeah, reach out to me and I'll connect you with Denis. If you saw someone walking down the street with a Steely, would you chase them down the street?
Today, probably. Like, I think a few years ago, I wouldn't. That's actually funny. Not wanting to like stretch it too long, but I lived in Los Angeles between 2010 and 2013. And I used to like the Dead, but I wasn't like such an aficionado back then. And I remember every time I would walk on the Venice boardwalk with a Dead t-shirt, people would just stop me and want to talk to me and ask me, have I seen them live? And I remember, do I remember Jerry and everything? And at first it kind of bothered me, dude, I'm just wearing a t-shirt, a band t-shirt. But you cut to 2024. I went to the shows at the Sphere to catch the last weekend at the Sphere because I thought it was the last.
Oh, never.
Would be the last. Yeah. And as soon as I came back from that show, I went back to LA. So I was walking down the boardwalk, and now I saw myself on the other side of that story. I was desperately looking for any sign of a tie-dye so I could just talk to someone, have you seen the Dead? Were you there yesterday? And so I had a little character arc moment there.
Well, you are up by one going into the second of three songs of the finals. Let's hear Angie's next choice. The guesses are in. It was Fire on the Mountain at Nassau on November 1st, 1979. Cool pick, Angie. Yeah, tell us about that fire.
So I actually have a coworker who loves the show, and when he found out that I was doing it, he was like, "You should only do fires. Do like all fires." And I was like, "That's not something I'm going to do." But I did, he's right. Like I did want some sort of fire. There was I think summer of like 2018 where like I only listened to different versions of Fire and I just had this really fiery summer. So of course I wanted it to be in here and I love this particular one. I love the Nassau Coliseum. It's so legendary. One of my favorite like live Bowie albums is the Coliseum. He does Station to Station in 76 there. It's really great. But yeah, I mean, it's just I had to choose it. So
Can you tell us more about the Fire Summer?
it was just it was my colleague had put this book out on the dead. His name is David Brown. And I was reading that and for some reason I just like got heavy into Fire and it just is such a summery song to me. I was like living in Williamsburg at the time and not really enjoying it because I'm not the most Williamsburg, Brooklyn kind of person. But I was lucky enough to have this rooftop and I would just go on there every day and like the really like hottest part of day and just sit outside listening to Fire on the Mountain. And that just became like when I think about that summer, that's like all I think about. And yeah, I think 79 is so great and it was hard to pick. It really was. But I wanted to kind of mix it up in here and not be so hard with just like a drums or something. I want to throw some nice ones in there for you guys. So
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was that was a nice one. They were both right on it. Zach guessed 79, so he got it exactly. Denis was 1980, so Zach ties it up in the clutch with one song remaining. Zach, why 79?
I was initially thinking it was that, I can't think of the name of the Egypt release, something, the Cradle, I can't, whatever.
Rocking the Cradle?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, which is 78, but then our boy Brent Midland saved me. And I heard like the Rhodes, and he doesn't play a Rhodes after whatever, early 80s or whatever. So I'm hearing like that sound gave it to me.
Damn, Zach. That's a clutch one. Denis, 1980.
I was between 79 and 80. For some reason, I leaned to 80 because I think of the recording quality. It sounded like there was a lot of air to it, and which is what I associate with the 80s, with 1980s recordings, like especially the Dead Set ones. I don't know. To me, it just sort of reminded me of that.
Very reasonable. You guys are, damn, one track off over two songs. There's one more track left. Great television here. But before we go on the third track, Angie, how did you get into the Dead?
I grew up in South Florida, like suburban Miami. So there wasn't too many Deadheads that I knew of in that particular area I grew up in. It wasn't like something that my parents loved. Like it was again kind of like Jackson. It was in like the periphery of what they listened to. And I also remember like I would see Dead artwork all the time, like shirts. I even had like a joint, a pre-roll container that had like skull. And I remember buying it when I was like 15 and being like, "Oh, this is like that scary metal band. I should listen to them." And I was like, the imagery to me, obviously, like most people say this, I thought it was going to be like a really like deep, heavy metal thing I would not like. And then I put it on and I was like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And then, the rest is history. I just fell in love with it. I also I would drive up to Bonnaroo a lot as a teenager and do summers there and like that community and like meeting like real Deadheads and people who would just like camp out and like sell shit in the sidewalks. Like it was kind of my introduction to like the community and like meeting really cool people. And again, it was nothing like Miami. So it was very different and jarring. And then moving to New York and, I started working for Rolling Stone technically almost over 10 years ago now, as like a very young intern. And just reading like our history and like we always were so good at covering the Dead for obvious reasons. So that got me very into it too.
When you first walked in the Rolling Stone office, do you look around like, all right, who's the Deadhead here? Like, who can I talk to about this?
I mean, yeah, it was Frick, who my first interaction with him was like, I mean, I tell this story a lot. It was like something out of like a comedy film from like the early 2000s where like we ran into each other by accident in the hallway, like physically head on. And he had like a stack of papers that went flying into the air.
No.
And he was not happy about it. And I was some young intern who was like, I'm so sorry, like I loved your Kurt Cobain interviews. Like he was yeah. So that but he was and he's kind of he freelances still, but he was like the OG, like he's been doing stuff forever on them. And reading his lists, like he's done endless lists still in print, but some are on the website now about like the essential bootlegs and like the best Jerry shows. And like I used to just like read those for fun. So
Going back to where we started the Bob interview, did you pitch it or did someone say like, I'm imagining everyone like sitting together in a big office and be like, hey, who wants to interview the dead? And you being like me. But I guess that probably didn't happen like that.
no, even like pre-pandemic, I was like, yo, like telling my bosses, I was like, let me go work out with Bob Weir. And they're like, what? Why? And I would be like, just let me like, just, do some like deadlifts with him or something. Like, let me just do something fun. And then it was literally on the cusp of 2020 happening. And I've just been like really, like I said, it felt like perfect timing and I was pitching it constantly. And we kind of realized like this was the perfect time to do it.
What's the standing of the Grateful Dead in the Rolling Stone offices?
People love the Dead at Rolling Stone. I can't say they are fond, a lot of them, of Dead and Company.
Okay.
That's where the divide is. I am a true millennial. Continuum came out when I was in high school. So I love John Mayer and I'm very like unapologetic about it. So to me, it like made perfect sense that they're together. And I can't say that a lot of my older coworkers feel like it's a good thing.
Specifically John being in the band.
Yes, it's John.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's weird. Like they're people who like saw Jerry and now like it's a pop guy from the 90s doing songs. So it's just weird to watch him play Sugary. But what I love the most is like the community is still alive. Younger people get to experience it who didn't get to, when Jerry was alive. I think he fits well. I think he's incredibly gifted at what he does. And yeah, I'm all about it.
Is he on your list of people to talk to?
Oh, I would love to do that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Even like for Dead and Company and even outside of it, like I know his discography like shockingly well. It's a little weird for people who like know my music taste and they're like, why do you know like very early like live John Mayer songs? But yeah.
I feel like interviewing him would be a good challenge because he's incredibly self-aware.
He's got to be now after 2011, right?
I was gonna say he's had some rough interviews and like I feel like when he was younger he was super super cocky and like kind of nasty, to be honest, about like things he said. It was a different time, It's like I think now he's no, really though, like if you look at old interviews it's like a different person almost. Like he's older and like he also has had so much more of a career. He's been doing, I don't know. I love all the weird shit he's into. I love his like bizarre watch obsession.
I'm all into his watch obsession too. We have similar algorithms, I think. And
yeah.
And you can see him like loving talking about something besides music.
Yeah. Doesn't he like go to Switzerland for fun and like post photos like just me looking for watches again? I'm like, great. Like I'm at home. But I saw him at Music Cares. I actually saw him do a Terrapin that was like so stunning. And it reaffirmed just like when I'm not far in a crowd at Dead and Company, like trying to see. And I was like very up close and it was just him. It was like on acoustic. It was awesome. And it kind of reaffirmed just like why he belongs there.
Okay. Well, shit. Tie game going into the fifth track. Let's hear Angie's choice. Morning Dew in Pembroke Pines, Florida on May 22nd, 77. Angie breaking out the dew. Tell us about that great pick.
Y'all, call me basic, but it's probably my favorite Dead song. I'm like the Wiz in Long Strange Trip when he talks about Morning Dew, where like I will start choking up. It's such a like that scene kind of reflects how I feel about it. It's such a perfect song to me. Like and personally on like that kind of note, something I also do is like write about kind of like overlooked women who were songwriters a long time ago. And this is a Bonnie Dobson song that kind of ties into why I love it. It's also just like it's so beautiful, and I don't think I could do this list without choosing a Pembroke Pines one, which is 45 minutes south of or north of where I grew up. And this show, like, it's very well known, and I kind of felt like you could talk to Mike about it. I was like, should I even do this one? It's so obvious, but it's so dazzling and wonderful to me, and I listen to it all the time. So,
and you chose a really interesting section of it as well. So how did that come to be where you look back at women who are overlooked?
Yeah, a few years ago I was like, what's Michelle Phillips up to? And I was kind of bored, and I just like Googled what she was doing, and it wasn't a lot. She was like at home watching Netflix. So I flew to LA and hung out with her and like spent hours with her and talked to her about her career. And no one was really thinking about her now. And then it'll be the opposite, where songwriters who were kind of trying to be big back then and never even made a dent, like I don't know if you've heard of Judy Sill. She's someone who was on Asylum that David Geffen signed, who could have been a Linda Ronstadt or an Eagles on that label and never did anything. So I wrote about her did this really long feature on her a few years ago. So yeah, just people like that. And then when I find out, a lot of these Dead songs, obviously, like some of them are not originals, and finding out who Bonnie was really cool, and just her life and like what her song took on and what it means to so many Dead fans now.
What is her story?
I mean, I would love to talk to her. She was a songwriter back in the day. She still does stuff, but this is like her main song. She's still alive. I should probably try to do something, but I just think it's kind of cool that like a lot of these songs Jerry started to put into his sets, or not even Jerry, just other people, and it just became this staple. And hearing the Wiz talk about it is so fun. Just like how he gets like so teary-eyed discussing like not being in the truck in 72 and all of that. It's just like it's so legendary, and like there's just so many reasons why I love that song. But literally any version of Do, I'm always about.
Well, thank you, Angie. They're both 1 year off. Dennis got 78, Zach got 76. We're still going here. Dennis, why 78?
At first, I thought exactly 76, but then I thought, no, it's tighter than 76. This is tighter. They're looser than 76. So not sure why I went 78 and not 77. I think in my head I thought, no, they wouldn't go for 77. But
That's
yeah,
a comment. Happens a lot on the show, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Zach, why 76?
So I got in my head a little bit, and last week the last track was Ship of Fools from 1977. So I'm like, no way. I had 1977 typed into my phone, and I'm like, no way are we gonna like, would it be like, what are the odds? Like, it's been so difficult, and then it's just 77 to put the nightcap on it, and then it sounds like the Travis Bean. So that's like that's 76, and at some point 77. I think he phases that out, but so
Fuck yeah. Nice pick, Angie. Way to go, Zach. I understand you got to play the game. It's overtime for the first time in season 3. Let's hear Angie's 6th choice. Franklin's Tower at MSG on March 10th, 1981. Hometown show for you, Angie. Tell us about that Franklin's Tower.
I mean, that That snippet alone that I chose, I feel like I've listened to like 1,000 times. It's so fun. Not those exact time frames, that would be kind of crazy of me, but just this version in general is so fun. It's a fun song in general. People love it, obviously, but I think it sounds so lively here. I can't hear it without like doing a ridiculous dance and jumping up and down. Um, it's just like it's so wonderful, and yeah, I didn't really have an 81 in here at all, so I wanted to get that in there, and then MSG, second home. You could blindfold me and tell me your section, and I would probably get you there. I would try at least, but really,
What makes Trey has spoken eloquently about MSG as a venue. What do you think makes it so special?
I mean, so I think it's special. It's hard for me to see it like people see it who don't live there now, because to me it's just like a venue I see all the time and I'm always at. I think that's why I love it. It's so accessible, and it's not very fancy. Like, it's just kind of like there's a lot of places like it. And I think that's why it's endearing to people. Like, they have like a Dunkin' Donuts there with no donuts. Like, they inside the thing, it's just ridiculous. There's so many things that like boggle my mind about it. It's changed so many times over the years, like the building itself. So they have like Marilyn Monroe's like dresses, and they have what's his face, the wrestler, Hulk Hogan's like diaper situation. They have that on the wall. But none of it happened there. So it's just like all these inaccurate, like wildly inaccurate things about it. It has all these quirks and things I love. And yeah, it's just like a really special place to me. And I think I go so often that I kind of forget what it means to people who haven't been there. So I love when people come in town and I get to take them to shows. But yeah, these shows, like I actually saw Dead and Company for Halloween at the Garden. And it was like an absolute shit show to get in. It was so packed, and like, so it was such a crazy rowdy night, but I loved every second of it. And like, it was just yeah, I think anytime they play there, I'm just so interested in those set lists and like what it was like. And this Franklin's to me was like something I had to put on here. So
Yeah, and interesting place in the set list. It was the second track after Half Step, I believe.
yes, it's weird. Yeah.
Well, Zach guessed 85, Dennis guessed 83. Dennis wins. Congrats, Dennis.
Oh my God, no. Can't believe it. Cool.
Congrats,
Yay.
man. Why 83?
Thanks, man. Okay, for some reason, I feel like I can pinpoint 82, but I cannot differentiate very much between 81 and 83. 81 and 83, they sort of sound similar to me. And so I heard this. I thought it was a bit faster, but not as fast as it could get. So I didn't want to go to 85 because like that would be crazy fast. So I stuck with 83. I guess that was it pretty much.
Congrats, Dennis. Really nice work. Our returning champ goes down in a hard-fought overtime, 85.
I had 82 typed in, and I'm like, no. And then I went 84. And then I was sitting here, and I was like, and I just kept going further away.
Damn, forsaking the gut on 2 consecutive songs.
Yep.
Nice run, Zach. It's been a pleasure chatting.
Oh, it's been awesome. Thank you so much.
Angie, any articles coming out soon that people should check out?
There's one I can't say right now, but I can say I've been working on this piece for like a year and a half on this woman named Laura Nero, who was a singer-songwriter in the 70s, a long time ago, and that's coming out soon. And then I'm trying to think of other ones that are nothing I can say right now, unfortunately. I have small things, like I'm working on this story on this cool label that's reissuing like awesome forgotten stuff from like Gene Clark and Love and things like that. And that's like a fun thing I can do in like a week. And I'm reviewing the Haim record that's coming out. So that takes like a couple weeks, stuff like that. And then I have things that sit for like a year. So
Seems like it's part of the process.
yeah, it depends on what it is. But like, I don't know, like I can do that kind of stuff, but watching you guys do this is incredible. And like, it was so, and no, I'm not just saying that. It's so fascinating to hear you guys talk and like your examples and your reasons for stuff. I learned a lot. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Angie, for such thoughtful picks and stories and insights.
Thanks for having me. And nice to meet all of you.
All right, thanks so much for listening. For all the show links, including our YouTube channel, go to guesttheyear.net. If you want to be contestant on the show, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us, info@guesttheyear.net. Eric Mlyn's seminar in Wisconsin, check it out. The link is in the show notes. Shout out to Dylan, James, and Jack for helping out behind the scenes. Thank you, Angie Martoccio, for curating such a great, thoughtful set list. You can access her Instagram and Rolling Stone author page in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks to the amazing tapers whose recordings made this show possible. Congratulations to Denis on the big W, and to our other contestants, thanks for playing, and remember, it is all one song anyway.
And I bid you good night, good night, good night. And I bid you good night, good night, good night.